created someone speaking to millions, never human history as a person, and access to so many people. You continue scrolling minute after minute, video after video, post after post, and instead of feeling connected, you feel alone. In today's adventure through human psychology and human nature. It is 2:17 in the morning. Your room is dark, the world is silent. You reach for your phone, one tap, suddenly millions of people became available. Friends, strangers, celebrities, influencers. Entire lives unfold before your eyes. A person in Tokyo is posting breakfast, someone in New York is celebrating a promotion, a couple in Paris is sharing a sunset, a creator someone is speaking to millions, never human history as a person, and access to so many people is something strange happens. You continue scrolling minute after minute, video after video, post after post, and instead of feeling connected, you feel alone. Not physically alone, something deeper. A loneliness that exists even when surrounded by people, a loneliness that follows you in crowded rooms, that survives text messages, that survives notifications, that survives followers. How is it possible? How did humanity build machines capable of connecting billions of people and absolutely became more isolated? How did the generation with unlimited communication become the generation mostly likely to report loneliness, anxiety, and social disconnection? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, what if loneliness was never about being alone? What if loneliness is the feeling of being unseen? Tonight we explore one of the greatest psychological mysteries of our modern age. Not why people are lonely, but why humans need each other in the first place. Because hidden beneath every friendship, every relationship, every social network lies a truth about human nature that we only begin to understand. The feeling of being disconnected from others, from the community, and from ourselves is one of the deepest wounds of modern life, inspired by the themes explored in the lost connections. For most of human history, loneliness was rare, not because people were happier or life was easier. Life was often brutal, diseases, war, famine, uncertainties. Yet despite all these, our ancestors possessed something many modern people lack: constant human contact. For nearly all human existence, people lived in tribes, small communities. People worked together, ate together, slept near one another, raised children collectively. Survival depended on cooperation. To be separated from the tribe was not merely uncomfortable, it was dangerous, possible fatal. And because of this reality, evolution shaped the human brain in a remarkable way. We did not evolve merely to enjoy connection, we evolved to need it. The need for belonging became woven into our biology. Loneliness, therefore, is not a weakness. It is a signal, just as hunger signals lack of food, just as fast signals lack for water. Loneliness signals lack of meaningful social connection. The pain is intentional. Nature designs it that way because our ancestors who felt the pain of isolation were more likely to reconnect with the group and survive. In other words, loneliness acts because it was supposed to. The psychologist John Cacioppo, one of the world's leading loneliness researchers, argued that loneliness functions much like physical pain. It alerts us to a threat, not a threat from predators, a threat from disconnection. This reveals something profound. Human beings are not independent creatures. We like to imagine ourselves as self-made, self-sufficient, entirely autonomous. But beneath our modern identities remain an ancient reality. We are social animals, and our nervous system are built around one another. Our emotions were built around one another. Our survival was built around one another. which raises a fascinating question. If human connection is so essential, why are so many people struggling to find it today? Around the early 2010s, something changed. Suddenly, smartphones became nearly universal. Social media became mobile. The internet shaped being a place we visited. It became a place we lived into. The timing is important because researchers began noticing something unusual. Rates of anxiety rose, rates of depression rose, sleep quality declined, feelings of loneliness increased, particularly among young people. This pattern became one of the central arguments in The Anxious Generation by social psychologist John Cacioppo. It suggests that a major rewiring of childhood occurred. Children moved away from what he calls a play-based childhood and toward a fun-based childhood. Less time outdoors, less unsupervised play, less face-to-face interaction, more screens, more social media, more digital comparison, more virtual life. The result was not merely technological change, it was psychological change. Because human development evolved around conditions very different from those provided by a smartphone. A child learns empathy by reading faces. A child learns confidence by navigating real social situations. A child learns resilience by facing manageable risk. But what happens when much of the social life moves into screens? What happens when approval becomes measurable? When popularity becomes numeral? When self-worth becomes public? Human psychology enters territory it was never designed to navigate, and the consequences are still unfolding. We are overprotecting children in the real world while underprotecting them online. The irony is almost tragic. The tools we created to eliminate isolation may have amplified it. The technology is designed to connect us, may be changing our connection feels. And to understand why, we must examine one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, comparison, because the human mind has always compared itself to others. But social media transformed comparison from one occasional experience into a permanent environment, and that may have changed the way an entire generation sees itself. Imagine a village, a small village, 100 people. You know everyone. You know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know who struggles, you know who succeeds, you know who is wealthy, you know who is not. Now imagine comparing yourself to them. The comparison might hurt occasionally but it remains limited, human, manageable. Now imagine something entirely different. Imagine comparing yourself to not only 100 people, but millions of them. Millions of carefully edited life. Crazy, right? Millions of highlights, millions of victories, millions of filtered moments, and almost none of the failures will come to the modern world, a world in which the human mind encounters something evolutionary, never prepared it for. If you need comparison, you see, comparison did not begin with social media. It began long before civilization, long before cities, writing. Our ancestors constantly compared themselves to others who were stronger, respected, trusted, successful. Those comparisons help individuals understand their position within a tribe, and knowing one's position, often in survival values. A human brain evolved to monitor status because status mattered. It was uncritical. Psychologist Leon Festinger proposed the social comparison theory. His idea was simple. Humans evolved themselves partly by comparing themselves to other people, not because they are shallow, because the brain naturally seeks reference points. The problem is that our ancestors compared themselves to dozens of people. We compare ourselves to millions. It's like climbing a mountain. You reach the summit. You expect satisfaction. Instead, the clouds clear and another mountain appears, even taller, then another and another. This is psychology of comparison. Every achievement becomes normal. Every victory becomes expectant. Every milestone becomes temporary. The phenomenon is known as hedonic adaptation. Humans adapt remarkably quickly to improvements. The dream job becomes a regular job. The phone becomes the own phone. The achievement becomes the history. And when adaptation occurs, comparison begins again. Something always appears richer, smarter, more attractive, more talented, more successful. The ladder never ends, my friend. And because it never ends, many people spend their lives climbing without ever arriving. Imagine watching a movie but only the best scenes, the victories, the romance, celebration, success. You never see the loneliness, the doubt, the mistakes, the fear. Now imagine believing that the movie represents a reality. This is what social media often creates. People compare their behind-the-scenes experiment to everyone else's highlights. Even me, as I'm recording this one, I have a lot of retakes and takes and retakes and failures and mistakes and corrections. But the final product is well edited. The result is psychological distortion. The student believes everyone else is confident. The entrepreneur believes that everyone else is succeeding. A creator believes everyone else is growing faster. A young person believes that everyone else has figured life out. Meanwhile, millions of people are quietly believing the exact same thing. The illusion becomes collective. Everyone feels inadequate. Everyone believes everyone else is doing better, and nobody realizes most people are struggling in private. It's crazy, wild. For thousands of years, status came from relatively stable things: reputation, skills, wisdom, leadership, contribution. Today, status can arrive instantly. A video goes viral, a post explodes, an account grows overnight. For the first time in history, social approval can be measured publicly. Likes, followers, shares, views. Numbers became symbols, and symbols became identity. The danger is subtle. The brain begins treating metrics as evidence of personal worth. 100 likes feels meaningful. 10 likes feels disappointing, even though neither number says anything definitely about a person's value. Yet emotionally, the distinction feels enormous, because the brain interprets social approval as social acceptance and always mattered to human survival. For older generations, social media arrived after identity and already began forming. For many members of Gen Z, social media arrived during identity formation itself. This difference is critical. Adolescence has always been a period of self-discovery, a period of asking, who am I? Where do I belong? How do others see me? Now imagine those questions being asked under constant observations, every photo evaluated, every opinion judged, every interaction potentially public. The pressure becomes immense. In the anxious generation, the smartphone era fundamentally altered the social environment in which young people develop. Instead of occasional social comparison, many young people experience continuous comparison. Instead of temporary embarrassment, mistakes can become permanent records. Social dynamics follow them all. The social world never truly switches off, and neither often does the mind. Here is what we encounter: one of the strangest paradoxes in human history. People have never been more connected, yet many report feeling more disconnected. Why? Because connection and contact are not the same thing. A person may receive hundreds of messages and still feel unseen. A person may have thousands of followers and still feel unknown. A person may spend hours online and still lack genuine longing. A person may have thousands of followers and still feel unknown. A person may spend hours online and still lack genuine belonging. Human beings do not merely need interaction. They need meaningful connection and interaction. They need eye contact, shared experiences, trust, vulnerabilities, presence. The thing that allow tribes to function for thousands and thousands of generations before us. So technology can facilitate these things, but it cannot automatically replace them. And when substitutes begin replacing necessities, loneliness emerges, not because humans are broken, because humans remain exactly what they have been always. Centuries designed for deep connection, creatures designed for deep connection. At this point, it is tempting to blame social media, to blame smartphones, to blame algorithms, but perhaps the deeper question is not technological, perhaps it's psychological. Why are humans so vulnerable to comparison in the first place? Why does approval matter so much? Why do strangers' opinion affect us? Why can rejection feel physical, painful? The answer lies far deeper than Instagram, TikTok, than the internet that you always interact with daily. It lies within one of the oldest human needs of all, the need to belong. Because beneath every follower count, every status symbol, every achievement, every attempt to impress is often a much older desire, a desire that has shaped human behavior for centuries. The desire to be accepted and the desire may explain more about loneliness than technology ever could. Imagine being completely invisible, not physically but psychologically. Imagine walking into a room and nobody notices, nobody remembers your name, nobody asks you, how are you doing? Nobody cares whether you arrive or leave. Nobody would notice if you disappeared. For most people, this thought is uncomfortable. For some, it is terrifying. But why? Why should the opinions of others affect us so deeply? Why does rejection hurt? Why does loneliness ache? Why does belonging feel so necessary? To answer the question, we must travel back thousands and thousands of generations, back before cities, nations, and technologies. Back to the environment that shaped the human mind. Today, being excluded from a group may hurt emotionally. For our ancestors, it could be a death sentence. Imagine living in a small tribe. You depend on others for food, protection, shelter, or survival. A lone human was vulnerable. A tribe was powerful. Belonging was not a luxury. It was survival. And because belonging was essential, evolution designed a powerful motivation system. Pain. Not physical pain, but social pain. The pain of exclusion, pain of rejection, pain of being unwanted. The researchers have found something remarkable. The brain often processes social rejection using some of the same neutral system involved in physical pain. Think about that. Nature could have chosen any signal to choose pain. Because pain gets our attention. Pain forces action. Pain motivates reconnection. From an evolutionary perspective, loneliness is not a malfunction. It is an alarm system. It is ancient warning signal. A message from the brain saying, you are becoming disconnected from the group, and the group matters more than you realize. People often say they fear failure, or poverty, or embarrassment, but beneath many fears lies something deeper. The fear of rejection. Consider how much human behavior evolves around acceptance. The clothes we wear, the careers we choose, the opinions we express, the risk we avoid, the dreams we hide. How often do people silence themselves because they fear judgment? How often do people conform because they fear exclusion? How often do people conform because they fear exclusion? How often do people pretend because they fear being disliked? For more than most of us realize, the psychologist Abraham Maslow famously proposed the nature that human beings possess fundamental needs. Among them was need to love and belonging. Not wealth, not status, or belonging. Belonging. Many other achievements lose their meaning. What good is success if there is nobody to share it with? What good is recognition if nobody truly knows you? What good is power if you remain alone? The human heart seeks something deeper than achievement. It seeks connection. This is where many people become confused. They assume loneliness means having too few people around. But loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. A person can be physically alone and feel peaceful. A person can be surrounded by hundreds of people and feel isolated. Why? Because loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of meaningful connection. You can talk to dozens of people every day. You never feel understood. You can receive thousands of likes. You never feel seen. You can become famous. You never feel known. The modern world often provides visibility. What people truly crave is understanding. This explains why some of the most connected individuals still experience profound loneliness. Connection without depth becomes noise. Presence without intimacy becomes distance. Interaction without vulnerabilities becomes performance. The human soul is not satisfied by attention alone. It seeks recognition, not recognition of achievements, recognition of self, to be known, to be understood, to be accepted despite imperfections. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. You introduce yourself, you smile, you present a version of yourself. Most people do. The psychologist Evan Kaufman argues that social life often resembles a performance. We wear a mask, not necessarily fake mask, protective masks, careful selected versions of ourselves, the confident versions, the funny version, the successful version, the strong version, the composed version. And sometimes those masks become so familiar that we forget they are masks. The problem is not wearing them. The problem emerges when nobody sees beyond them, because a strange paradox appears. The more perfect the mask becomes, the lonelier the person behind it often feels. Why? Because connection requires vulnerability. People cannot truly know who you are if they only know your performance. And so many people become trapped. They seek acceptance, but fear revealing themselves. They crave connection, but hide the very part that created. The result is loneliness, disguised as social success. It is something most people do not realize. The majority of people are carrying invisible struggles, doubts, insecurities, fears, questions, loneliness, yet everyone assumes everyone else has things figured out. The illusion is especially powerful in the age of social media. People share victories, confusion. People share victories, rarely confusion. People share confidence, rarely uncertainties. People share success, rarely fear. And because everyone sees everyone else highlight, they begin believing they are uniquely flawed. But the truth is almost the opposite. To be human is to struggle, to doubt, to wonder, to feel lost sometimes. The tragedy is not that people struggle. The tragedy is that so many struggle alone, believing they are the only one. Think back to a moment when someone truly listened to you, not politely or casually, but they truly listened to you. A moment when you feel understood, a moment when you did not need to impress, did not need to perform or need to hide. For a brief period, something changed. The loneliness softened. The anxiety quietened. The mask relaxed. Because the deepest human desire may not be happiness. It may be understanding. The philosopher and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, whose work inspired generation through man's search for meaning, observed that human beings can endure extraordinary suffering when they possess meaning and connection. The opposite is also true. Even comfort can feel empty when connection is absent, because humans were never designed to merely survive. They were designed to belong. At first glance, loneliness appears to be a social problem, but beneath it lies a deeper psychological question. What kind of connection are human beings actually searching for? Because if millions of people are surrounded by communication yet still feel disconnected, perhaps the problem is not quantity. Perhaps it is quality. Perhaps the issue is not how many people know us, but whether anyone truly does. And that realization leads us to the next chapter, because there is a force quietly shaping human relationship, a force that promises connection while others weakening it. A force that may be changing how an entire generation experience friendship, love and belonging, convenience. And what convenience it gives us, it sometimes takes away. Imagine a world without instant messaging, no WhatsApp, no Instagram DMs, no Snapchat, no texting. If you wanted to talk to someone, and to see them, you went to hear the voices, read the faces, notice the pause in their speeches, feel the silence between the ones. You went to be present. Now imagine the opposite, a world where communication is effortless, a message can travel across continents in seconds. A friendship can continue without ever meeting. Crazy. A conversation can happen without eye contact, without tone, touch, or presence. Damn. At first glance, it seems like progress, and in many ways it is. Technology has connected families across oceans, allowed friendships across borders, giving people opportunities that previous generation could never imagine. Yet a question remains: if communication has become easier than ever, why do meaningful relationships often feel under? The modern world often treats communication and connection as the same thing. They are not. Connection is the exchange of information. Communication is the exchange of information. Connection is the exchange of humanity. One can happen without the other. You can message someone every day and still feel distanced. You can spend 5 minutes in the right person and feel deeply understood. The difference lies in the something psychology repeatedly points to one's presence. Human beings evolved face to face. For hundreds of thousands of years, relationships were built through shared experiences. Working together, eating together, walking together, struggling together. Stories were told around fires, no screens. And the human brain became remarkably skilled at reading subtle social signals, face expressions, body language, eye contact, voice inflection, micro expressions, tiny details that communicate emotions. When these signals disappear, something important disappears with them. No connection, no communication, not communication, but connection. And this may sound strange, but some of the strangest relationship in history was difficult. Friendship required effort, family gathered. It is a narrator, Bensai. Ask yourself a question. Make sure you subscribe, you like, you share. Let us spread this gospel of human connection, that we can connect with each other face to face for strong bonding. Thank you. And I'm doing this campaign of youth to you. So if you meet a youth doing something, support them fully, because your support depends on them. Because your support, it helps them find the meaning of life. When I support you and you support me and we support each other, we can go far. We can go far if we just believe. Thank you.